Дальше я нанес ему еще несколько ударов по голове,
Так.
разбит. Вставил ему в бутылку.
He wanted to use a stick first, but it didn't fit in the head, so he used the bottle. Then he explained what sounds the victim made when he was dying.
Очень сильно. Даже когда уже мертвый был сам. Ну, вроде раз он ударил, вообще.
But that is just one of the cases of Alexander Pichushkin, also known as the chessboard killer. Now we've talked about how Russia has Andrei Chikolai as one of the most evil serial killers, but now you'll know that it has another one, and that is Alexander Pichushkin. Now you may notice how his head is a bit misshaped, right? That happened when Alex was 4 years old. He fell off a swing backward. To make matters worse, the swing hit him on the head as it came back down. This caused severe damage to his frontal cortex. When this part of the brain gets hurt badly, it can lead to difficulty controlling impulses and feelings of aggression. From this moment on, the once happy and polite Alexander was never the same. He had trouble learning and was picked on at school because of how he looked. When other kids teased him, he reacted aggressively and proved to them that calling him names would lead to trouble. His father had left him when he was a baby, so his mom had to take care of him. And after some effort, she managed to get him transferred to a school better suited for children with disabilities. Alexander was known for having a big love for animals. He lived with his mother, half-sister, and her husband in a 2-bedroom apartment in Moscow. The building was only a 6-minute walk from Bitsevsky Park, also known as Bitzer Park, which is one of Moscow's biggest natural parks. His grandfather introduced him to chess, in which Alexander became so good that he even managed to win games against the elderly. But when his grandfather died when he was in his teenage years, this was his downfall point. This is when he turned to relying on vodka. At the age of 18, he committed his first murder. He went to school with a boy named Mikhail Odachuk, and they appeared to be friends for a long time. Alexander openly told Mikhail that he wanted to kill someone, and surprisingly, Mikhail also wanted to. However, when they would meet up to plan the murder together, Mikhail would always get cold feet about it. So Alexander got annoyed by this and killed him instead by pulling a hammer from his bag and repeatedly hitting him on the head. Once his victim's body went limp, Pichushkin left it by the sewer system that ran through the park. The next day, the police discovered his body and arrested Alexander, but later they released him without any charges. Pichushkin's next murder took place in September 1992, after he was romantically rejected by his neighbor Olga. She reportedly told him that she wasn't interested and already had a boyfriend. Angry at this rejection, Pichushkin went to her boyfriend's apartment, and it's believed that he pushed the young man out of the window. However, his death was ruled as a suicide. After these 2 murders, he stopped committing crimes for almost a decade because he was afraid of getting caught and facing the death penalty. This decision came in October 1992, the same month when Andrei Chikatilo was sentenced to death. He resumed his favorite hobby in 2001, when he was already 27, stocking shelves in a supermarket. He devised a plan to start targeting elderly, homeless men who were living on the streets near his home. Many of these men were homeless and alcoholics and would do anything to get a bottle of vodka. He killed his victims using blunt force trauma, often using a wrench, a hammer, or a metal pipe or rod. He would strike his victims from behind to catch them off guard and to prevent blood from getting on his clothes. Pichushkin never killed his victims in one blow because he wanted them to know what was happening. In some cases, he would shove shattered glass shards from vodka bottles into the wounds of his victims. He would later state, "I like the sound of a skull splitting." He rarely targeted women and had only about 3 female victims. His youngest known victim was a 9-year-old boy. It's alleged that he sometimes pushed his victims into a sewage canal in the park, where they would drown. Additionally, he frequently pushed others down a well to their death. At least 13 bodies are believed to be stuck in the park's sewage system. His final victim was a 36-year-old single mother named Marina Moskalyova. Alexander offered to go for a walk with her, and even though she felt suspicious of him, Moskalyova agreed to go. Before leaving, she left a note for her son, informing him that she was with Pichushkin, and she also left his phone number. After being done with her, he would later dump her body in bits of the park. Police located the body almost immediately, but this time a piece of evidence had been left behind. Inside Marina's pocket, police found a ticket for the train station nearby. They decided to review the security footage from the station on the date of her disappearance and discovered that she had been walking through the train station with Alexander. 2 days later, police showed up at his apartment and arrested him. Once arrested, Pichushkin led police officers to the scenes of many of his crimes in Bitsa Park and demonstrated a keen recollection of how the murders were committed. Pichushkin claimed that deciding whether his victims should live or die made him feel like a god. He said, "For me, life without murder is like life without food for you. I felt like the father of all these people since it was me who opened the door for them to another world." Pichushkin kept a small notebook in his pocket on which he had sketched out a chessboard. Each square had a date written in it that corresponded to one of his alleged murders. At the time of his arrest, the 33-year-old had filled in approximately 61 of the 64 squares on the chessboard. He later admitted that once he completed the board, he would have continued to kill indefinitely. In the courtroom, he was placed inside a glass chamber, very similar to Andrei Chikatilo. During the trial, he claimed that one's first murder is like first love and admitted that he sometimes ejaculated when he killed. At the trial's onset, the prosecution stated that, according to Pichushkin's own testimony, he hoped to surpass the record of Andrei Chikatilo. Doctors from the Serbsky Center in Moscow, Russia's most respected psychiatric clinic, pronounced him insane, noting that he never had any documented mental health issues and had average intelligence. On October 24, 2008, Pichushkin was found guilty of 48 murders. During the trial, he insisted that he killed 63 people and wanted recognition for it.
Учитывая повышенную опасность совершенных преступлений, исключительно опасность для общества самого виновного, суд в целях восстановления социальной справедливости и предупреждения совершения новых преступлений считает необходимым назначить Пичушкину за совершение особо тяжких преступлений, повлекших массовую гибель людей, пожизненное лишение свободы.
Upon conviction, Judge Vladimir Usov sentenced Pichushkin to life imprisonment, with the first 15 years to be spent in solitary confinement. As of today, he is 50 years old, and all prisoners refuse to share a sound with him, terrified of being brutally murdered in the middle of the night. Anyways, that is all for his story. Follow and subscribe for more interesting crime stories.